You're listening to the Sticks in the Six podcast. Here are your co-hosts, Andrew Forbes, Peter Barricini, and Alex Hobson.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 114 of Sticks in the Six. We are live here today after a big blockbuster deal last night, boys. And as you can see, we've all got the passion going today. We felt like we should represent the team that going out and making the big move. But before we get into all the Leafs talk that we have today, boys, how are you doing today? Alex, we'll throw it to you first. Welcome back.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a couple weeks since I've been here, but I'm really glad to be back. I was out of the province for a couple of weeks, and the whole time I was sitting there manifesting a trade, and it ended up working. I was just telling you guys before we went live that I'm immensely grateful that this trade happened on a Friday night, because I'm laying in bed around 11 o'clock. I actually, that's a lie. I was out in my living with my roommates and I pulled up my phone and I saw a notification from my friend adding me in a tweet just saying, at A Hobson Media, how we feeling? And I was like, oh shit, something went down. I opened Twitter. I see the trade and I just kind of sat there and started like making these screeching noises. And he kept saying, my roommate kept saying, like, what's going on? Like, what did they make a trade? And I'm like, the Leafs made a trade. They got O'Reilly. And I couldn't get the words out. It took me probably 10 minutes before I actually told him what the whole trade was. And then I said, all right, I got to go lie down. I went into my room and I laid there probably for the next 2 hours, just bathing in Twitter, bathing in everything. You know what, boys? I tweeted like 2 weeks ago that I needed Kyle Dubas to make an absolute bone shaker of a trade and that I was fiending for one. And that probably held up as good as any other trade could have. And the fact that, you know, there's potential, and it sounds likely that they're going to be doing more moves as well. Oh, I'm on cloud nine right now. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Peter, you jumped on a little show last night with the Hockey Writers' immediate reaction to the big blockbuster deal. But before we get into all the implications that come with the Ryan O'Reilly trade, how are you doing this week, my friend?
Oh, ecstatic, boys. Ecstatic. I mean, we're kind of like you, Alex. Like, we were hoping that a big move would happen at some point, and lo and behold, man, that is absolutely something. It's funny because, you know, with all the fake accounts going around right now, especially during the, you know, era where you could just pay $8 for a blue check mark and you're an automatic source or whatever. I don't trust anybody. I really don't. So when I saw the news break and I'm seeing all these reporters doing it, I know that they're legit because I follow them right now and I go into the following section on Twitter because that's who I follow. I'm double checking the sources. I'm double checking that it's Frank Saravalli. I'm double checking that it's the Maple Leafs Twitter account that are like breaking this news right now because you don't know what to expect at this point. And then I saw like it's the legit source that, like, you know, Saravalli's got like the, you know, 30 plus K followers, I guess. I don't even know what his count is. The 2.7 million for the Leafs. And you're like, okay, that is legit. This is real stuff. And then at that point, I'm like, now what? We made a big deal. So like, where do we go from here? And now this is literally the time where it's all in time. This is the moment for the team where right now, this is it. This is where the grind starts.
Yeah, it's funny. Sorry, Andrew. I just want to butt in real quick again, just to say, first of all, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that, Peter, because Kyle Dubas, I found over past trade deadlines, has always made deals that have improved the team. Like even the Nick Foligno deal, as bad as it turned out, there was a purpose to that trade, and he was supposed to fill a good role on that team. Jake Muzzin, he fills a purpose. Mark Giordano, he filled a purpose. Jack Campbell, he filled a purpose. But especially at the trade deadline, the Leafs have never been the team to go big game hunting. So when we're sitting here taking in all this speculation, and hearing, oh, the Leafs are in on Timo Meier, the Leafs are in on Jacob Chychrun, and it's like, yeah, okay, show me, and then I'll be excited. But so I'm going to be honest, as much as I was holding out hope that they'd go for one of those bigger names, I wasn't letting myself get too excited. And I think that's why I've been on such an adrenaline high over the past 24 hours, because, you know, you don't want to be the guys like, yeah, this is the year. But at the same time, you know, they've never made a big move like this at the deadline. So, it's funny. I wanted to jump on that show with you last night, but to be completely honest, before Matt had asked us, I had smoked a massive joint and I was laying in bed and I was just on cloud nine. And I'm like, if I go on the air with Peter and Matt right now, I'm probably going to get fired from the Hockey Writers. So I'm going to sit this one out.
It's okay, I got you
Celebration
covered, man.
day, boys. Celebration.
That's right. That's right. We all have our ways. But no, I'm right there with you. The only thing I had, boys, with this move was that completely nullified that recent article I wrote for the Hockey Writers where I said the Leafs shouldn't go after a big name, and then yeah, take this, and he goes out and gets Ryan O'Reilly. So I'm absolutely ecstatic. I think as you guys have said, we're going to get into it a little bit more in depth here in a second, but it was such a big thing to do on a Friday night at like 11 o'clock, and
it was peak Kyle Dubas time to like drop a big news bomb at that point. I was expecting
Absolutely.
Nobody expected that, and it was just out of the blue.
You know
Absolutely.
what? The other thing too is that it's just you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I completely forgot what I was gonna say. I had something right on the tip of my tongue. As you can tell, my brain is still kind of all over the place.
A million miles an hour.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just remembered. The other thing too about it is that it just goes to show, and people mentioned this on Twitter all night last night. People are still talking about it. Insiders do not have a clue about the Leafs. They have no clue. You know that, and with all due respect to Frank Saravalli, because he does have better sources than any of us do, you could see a little bit of annoyance. You could sense a little bit of annoyance in his tweet about how what Dubas did went directly against everything that he told the reporters and insiders at that post All-Star break media availability. And it's just funny because it just reinforces the fact that Kyle Dubas works in silence, and these insiders just don't know anything. Like Elliot Friedman reported that the Leafs were working on something literally 30 seconds before Leafs PR announced the trade. So, you know, I think this year more than any other year should serve as a reminder to not take everything that the insiders say at full face value. Like, you know, they'll report on what they hear and they'll report on what their sources are telling them. But when it concerns the Leafs, they never really know.
And even so, like, that also just proves how much of a poker face that Kyle Dubas has. Like, he held this close to his chest. Like, we don't know how long this has been in the works for, but like, it seemed like everything started to pick up steam like hours before game times last night. And now all of a sudden you hear about this. You even heard about them possibly being in on Patrick Kane, but now this throws Patrick Kane out
Thank God.
for a new destination
God.
too. I want to get to that later on too, because I have a take for that. But at the same time, it's like now with Patrick Kane not in the mix anymore, Ryan O'Reilly's going to Toronto. This seems more like that move that Kyle Dubas needed, as opposed to going out and getting a Patrick Kane more so than anything.
And here you go, boys. Here's the passion of Leafs Nation right now, tuning in at 2:00 in the afternoon. Cody Bissell, thanks for tuning in on Facebook. Sir. Go Leafs, go! Absolutely, buddy. We're just as excited as you are, as you can see. But let's get right into the trade. Everything on this show right now is going to have everything to do circling around the trade deadline and the Leafs and what they've done with the O'Reilly move and all the implications that come with it. But for those of you that have been living under a rock for the last 12 hours, the Leafs went out and got Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, and I believe what's the last piece that they got from Minnesota?
It was Josh Pilar.
Josh Pilar. So I'll admittedly say I don't know much about him. But
unsigned prospect.
Yeah, I think he was born in like 2002 or something, right? He's in his last year of junior.
Yeah, so he's an overager right now. But that said, the Leafs give up Mikhail Abramov, Adam Gaudette. They gave up their first round pick in 23, Ottawa's third in 23, Toronto's second round pick in 24, and Minnesota received the Toronto's fourth round pick in 25 to retain 25% of O'Reilly's salary. So biggest news from this deal might be the salary that they're going to end up paying Ryan O'Reilly and what they were able to do with it, leaving them with just over $4 million in cap space. Peter, let's throw it to you. We were kind of wondering if, the Leafs were going to move that first round pick. They end up moving it for two. You can call them rentals, I guess. We don't know if there's anything going to come from this, but your thoughts on moving that first round pick for in this big Ryan O'Reilly trade?
Yeah, and even going back to what Alex said before, like Dubas literally contradicted himself. And I'm reading like a Mark Masters piece on Dubas's deadline approach, where he said he wasn't going to move high-end draft capital, which is like, top prospects, first-round picks. And it's kind of funny because literally I was watching that Sarnia Sting London Knights game, and I was watching Oliver Bonk, and I tweeted out, how great would it be if the Maple Leafs keep their first-round pick? Oliver Bonk is there. He seems like the type of Maple Leaf player type of player the Maple Leafs would go after. Well, you can guess what happened, because I'm like, well, there goes my dream of that happening, because I got a substantial amount of likes and stuff, and I'm like, oh, well, what are you going to do?
This draft this year, Peter, for you as a draft nut, it's going to be amazing, but as a Leafs fan, it's going to be a real boring day for you.
It's painful, I will say that, but then again, with this first round pick, the Maple Leafs may not even take Oliver Bonk, and that because it's a late first, possibly you don't know how that pick is going to pan out. Different situation where they traded it last year to take to Chicago to take Peter Mrazek off their hands, but this is a bigger one because in reality, yeah, I would have liked to hold on that pick, but if you're the Maple Leafs right now, you have to trade that pick. And if the fact that you only traded the third that you got from Ottawa, it may seem a lot with all the picks that you're giving up, but then again, you're in it to win it right now. You're not going to sit idly by when you see Tampa Bay and Boston possibly make big time deals, and then you see the Maple Leafs just do depth ones. No, you have to go big, and Kyle Dubas went big with this trade. I do think that another big point is, the prospect that they gave up is a B, C tier level prospect in Mikhail Abramov. You still hang on to Matthew Nyes, Fraser Minton, Topi Niemela, Ronnie Hirvonen. And even they even mentioned today during the press conference, Dubas has been impressed by Nikita Grebyankin, who I've been a big, supporter of and pumping the tires on him, or, because of the fact that he's had a great season in the KHL, because they have depth right now. And now the fact that you didn't give up Matthew Nyes, this serves as an opportunity for him to possibly come into this lineup, make a significant impact, and be a part of that future right now, whether Ryan O'Reilly is going to be a short time with Ryan O'Reilly or not, because now you still have your depth pieces and players to come in right away. But overall, fantastic move. Yeah, it's risky. Yeah, people are going to say, yeah, you gave up a lot of picks, but at the same time, you don't know how those late round picks are going to pan out. So all in all, big W for Kyle Dubas and the Leafs.
How great would it have been if Dubas liked your tweet on Oliver Bonk and then went and made that deal? Like that would have just been icing on the cake.
That would have been icing on the cake. That would have hurt even more. Yeah, I probably would have replied to him and be like, listen, Kyle, with all due respect, thank you, but what are you doing?
Yeah. Alex, the Leafs right now are looking at 2 picks in the upcoming draft, possibly a third. What are your thoughts on giving up that first round, knowing that, O'Reilly and Acciari are both, up for contract at the end of this season, and the Leafs with their cap situation, with this whole Bally Sports and everything that's going on, there could be a hit to the NHL's overall cap situation.
I don't give a shit. I'm not thinking about any of that right now. I'm thinking about the fact that Ryan O'Reilly's a fucking Leaf. Listen, that's a question you can ask me at the end of the season when either the Leafs finally overcame their demons and won a round, or lost in the first round again somehow. Then you ask me how I feel about their draft situation. But right now, I don't care, man. You can sit down and you can think about how it's potentially risky that the Leafs only have 3 picks in this year's draft. I think it's like a 3rd, a 6th, and a 7th or something like that. So you can sit back and think about that in the future, but the reality is it's not time to think about the future. It's time to think about right now. And like Peter said, when you're competing with Tampa and Boston, and people keep saying the Leafs have a hard path to the cup this year, going through Tampa, Boston, and then whoever ends up being in the conference final, hypothetically, if they were to go all that way, I mean, you got to make a move like that, even if it involves giving up a first round pick for a rental. So I think that for a move like that, it's just as important to keep O'Reilly away from teams like Tampa and Boston as it is to improve the team. And I said that in a tweet earlier, because realistically, let's think about this for a second. We look back at the trade that Tampa made last year for Brendan Hagel. Remember, They go out and they trade 2 first-round picks, 2 prospects. It was a hefty deal for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But in a sense, it ended up panning out for them because, they didn't win the cup, but they did make it to the cup final. So we know that Tampa can make those big ballsy moves. We know that Boston will more than happily make those big ballsy moves. Could you imagine what the mood right now would be if we were sitting back and discussing how the Leafs traded for Vladislav Gavrikov and how they had to go into the first round against Tampa Bay after Tampa acquired Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari? Mm-hmm. Could you imagine the Leafs playing a Lightning team with O'Reilly and Acciari on it? It wouldn't go well. And, I'm not saying that those guys would single-handedly dismantle the Leafs in the playoffs, but they're the exact type of players that have hurt the Leafs in the playoffs these past years. Fuck, Acciari was on the Bruins in 2019 and 2018, I'm pretty sure, when they eliminated the Leafs in the first round. So
Nick Paul last year.
Right? Nick Foligno with the
Nick Foligno.
Ironically enough, with the Blue Jackets. I
would even say Brendan Hagel too. Brendan Hagel looked great for Tampa Bay as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those trades that you can't sit back and worry about what you gave up, because imagine what people would be saying if the Leafs did just go depth. And we're sitting here with a barely improved team, looking at 2 teams in Tampa and Boston that hypothetically, I'm just assuming that they're going to improve, or that they would improve if the Leafs sat back. Imagine if we're just sitting here talking about how, the Leafs maybe added 1 or 2 depth guys. Tampa Bay made the big swing. It's pretty much the same situation they were in last year. Mm-hmm. So right now, I'm not thinking about the first round pick because, it's a good draft. So that part kind of sucks. But the first round pick is going to be between 25th and 32nd overall. And, but beyond that, what is it? A second round pick, a third, a fourth, and then fifth. And then what?
Third?
No, not a fifth.
Oh, wait, sorry. A conditional third because of that Arizona trade with Ilya Lyubushkin, I believe.
Yes.
And the 5th and 6th. So there may be a possibility that they won't pick until round 5.
And you know what? Who cares? Mm-hmm. You know what? Not Chicago, geez. Colorado's draft class last year, after they made all their trades for Manson, Lehkonen, Cogliano, Sturm, all them. I think they picked in the 6th and 7th round. Do you see them worrying about their prospect capital, whatever? Like you said, Peter, they held on to a lot of their good prospects. Mikhail Abramov's fine, but he's not somebody that the Leafs should be worried about losing, I don't think. Adam Gaudette, did well with the Marlies. Don't think he was ever going to get an extended look with the Leafs. And then the draft picks are draft picks. They could be anything. So, I respect Dubas for having the balls to make a move like this because the team needed it. And then when you factor in the salary retention too, they got O'Reilly making $1.8 million against the cap. Acciari, $1.2 million. They got $4 million and potentially more to work with in cap space to add a defenseman, like he said, and then maybe even another forward. So Dubas is going all in this year, and I couldn't be more here for it.
It's funny. Colorado didn't pick until round 6, and they took Chris Romain and then Ivan Zhigalov in the 7th round. So they had 2 picks. Then again, if you're willing to trade those picks, and the end result is success, a deep playoff run, and something to look forward to, who really cares?
2 more quick comments here from Cody, and we're going to touch on both of these in a sec here. But this year's draft is pretty weak. I believe that's why Dubas was fine with getting rid of this year's pick. And then he goes and says, this team's been notably good at plucking guys out of the KHL as well. That helps for the future as well. I would say that this is probably one of your best drafts in the last decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a good draft.
Deepest one since 2015. It is a
very good draft, very deep draft, especially in that first round. First round, you're getting like some of the guys you're going to get late in that first round would be like top 10 picks in other draft classes. But in saying that, we have also seen Dubas make some moves on trade day that has, gotten him maybe two lower picks for an earlier pick or what have you. So it's not completely out of the question that this is the draft picks that we're going to end up with as Maple Leaf fans either. And that's notable as well. But I do have to say, like, I wasn't ready to say that this team's good to go all in. Like, for me, it was always like, get past the first round, then we can focus on going all in. Mm-hmm. That said, when you can get a guy like Ryan O'Reilly with his pedigree, his Conn Smythe Trophy, his Stanley Cup experience, and you can get him for $1.8 million and still have room to possibly bring in a guy like maybe Jake McCabe, maybe Gavrikov is a guy that we have a conversation about. there's still a lot of room for this team to make that extra move. And really, in this deal, they filled 2 spots on a roster that maybe didn't need that depth player in Achari, but now you've got a guy who has that playoff experience as well in Achari, filling in the bottom 6 as well. And Peter, I know you got a great comment today about how Pierre Engvall is better than Achari. I know you were a little off base on trying to comment back, but I mean, when you look at it, when you look at the experience and what Achari brings to this lineup, you have to be pleasantly, not pleasantly surprised, but really happy with what Dubas has done with what he has. And really, I mean, to start the year with what we had $4 in cap space and to be where we are now, I think that's a huge testament to what he's done as the general manager here. And they are all in at this point. They are all in. They're going to make another move. One of the notes we have here is Darren Dreger's tweet on the sense around the Leafs right now is that this is not the end of, for their deadline move. So with that said, Alex, I'll throw it back to you. Is there a move you'd like to see them go out and make, whether it be for a defenseman, whether it's for another forward, and maybe they ship out somebody on the front end there?
I think the next move has to be for a defenseman. And, you know, I'm not on the train of, the Leafs need to add a defenseman or else they're not going to make it far in the playoffs. Like every hater that's still thinks the Leafs have the worst defensive core and goaltending in the league and haven't adjusted from 2011. I'm not that kind of guy. I think that obviously getting forwards was the biggest target this year, and they've made good on that so far. But I still do think that they need to add a defenseman, and it's just for the sole purpose that they don't have Mark Giordano and Justin Hall playing top 4 minutes in the playoffs. And that's really all it comes down to, you know, and with all due respect to Justin Hall, I think he's been better than he's gotten credit for this year. And, you know, Giordano's been a workhorse all season long, but the problem is Giordano is 39 years old. You don't want to put him in a position where his body breaks down. He gets slow in the playoffs. And Justin Hall is if anything, he should be a bottom pairing defenseman. He should not be playing 24, 25 minutes a night. And I worry that if the Leafs don't trade for a defenseman, that's going to happen again. And it's going to kind of expose their decor. Because remember, they don't have Muzzin this year. They had Jake Muzzin on their back end last year. So whether it's Jake McCabe or I don't think it'll be Gavrikov, because I'd have to imagine he'll be going for a first round pick. But whether it's McCabe or somebody else, I do think that they need to add another defenseman. And I think once they do that, then you can maybe ask the question of, do you want to keep adding? Do you want to bring in another depth forward? Do you want to hold out hope and just try Matthew Nyes in that role and see how he does? Like there's a lot of questions and a lot of potential roster moves the Leafs could be making here. And essentially right now where we are, I think the big thing is just getting another defenseman. And I think once they're at that point, then you can sit back and wonder if the roster is good enough as is, or if it's something that still needs some more upgrades. But I think to make this a perfect deadline, the Leafs would go out and get a defenseman and maybe one more depth forward, but not even a depth forward. I mean, if you really want to go after it and you can somehow get a top 6 forward with the assets you have remaining, that gives you a third line of, say, I don't know, Yarncroke, Achari, and O'Reilly, and that's probably one of the best third lines in the league, if not the best. So I'd like to see them prioritize a defenseman and then maybe just feel the market out and see what forwards are available for reasonably cheap prices.
Peter, some names that have been thrown out there. Connor Murphy is one guy that continually comes up with the Leafs. I threw out Edmondson. I think he's a possibility in Montreal as well. And then on top of that, another name, obviously Luke Schen's been linked to the Leafs as well. And another guy that there's been some talk around in terms of him being a trade asset this deadline is Soucy in Seattle. Now, for me, I can't see them making that move because where Seattle is right now.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on a possible target on the back end, knowing that, or let's assume that the Leafs don't go after another big name?
Yeah, the Soucy talk really crept up because, you know, Elliot Friedman did mention, even Scott Lawton and Soucy at the same time. And I've written about both players in the past, especially Soucy this year, and yeah, I agree that, you know, Carson Soucy may be unlikely to be dealt because of the fact that Seattle is in the playoff hunt themselves. I don't think they want to trade one of their key players, but if it does happen, you do have a capable guy that can play, the left or right hand side, can play in the top four, can play in your bottom pairing. This guy can do it all. He's essentially, I would consider the defensive version of Noel Acciari. Obviously, Noel Acciari is very good defensively as well within his own zone and PK time, but Soucy does bring that physical aspect. Same with Acciari. I think the possibility of, I would like to see a reunion with Luke Shen. I think he's shown in the past that he's able to put whatever, he was the spotlight that he faced in Toronto. He was rushed in as an 18-year-old defenseman, given that label, had some lulls in his game, but then managed to bounce back and find his consistency. So if they're able to do that and give him that role that he deserves, I think that would be huge. I would prefer both of those players, maybe Jake McCabe as well. Then again, you're asking for first for salary retention. That may not happen, but then again, if they're taking on his full salary, that price may drop, and that may go well for the Maple Leafs, considering they do have those spaces or that space available with the remaining money that they have. And also, what's interesting right now, they're over the roster size of 24 and 1 under for maximum contracts right now. So you can rest assured right now, somebody is getting dealt in terms of like their depth, whether it be, an Alex Kerfoot, a Pierre Engvall, Justin Hall, maybe, if you could try and improve him, because let's face it, that game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, I really did. That was a very ugly game for Hall. And I know, like Alex said, he's had some good games, but now the bad habits are starting to creep in again. And when you let in Kent Johnson, as good of a player as he is, you can't let anybody walk in and just get bullied like that in front of the net. So if they're able to find someone like a Soucy that's able to hold his own, box players out, tie them up, and make life difficult for them in front of the net, that's going to be big. And I think that if it does come to one of those two, realistically, Luke Shen, unrealistically, Carson Soucy, because I've liked his game so far.
Let's talk a little bit of implications when it comes to what happens with this O'Reilly deal. Obviously, right now, there's news that Erik Källgren was called up on an emergency basis. That doesn't really have to do with the trade, albeit Holmberg was sent down, kind of a question mark based on what he's done so far this season and what he's provided for the Leafs. On top of that, we talk a little bit about Matt Murray was placed on LTIR, so that kind of frees up a little bit of cap space going into the deadline as well. Peter, your thoughts on these moves and mostly about Pontus Holmberg. Obviously, we've discussed him a number of times on this show and what our thoughts are on how he's played this season. This is obviously just a move to make room for the depth guys that you're bringing in Acciari. We could possibly see Pontus Holmberg back this season.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. You do want to get a sense of where you have or what you have with the players that you have right now, especially in terms of the experience, in terms of NHLers. As good as Holmberg has been, similar to Justin Hall, he's had some hiccups in his game. Though he has able to bounce back big time. And I think he's proven that he could play in the NHL. There's no doubt about that. But when you make moves like these, some of these younger players that are looking for that spot, they got to up their game a little bit. And I think now the spotlight is not necessarily, or not the spotlight, but, management is looking for Holmberg to say, hey, we got these players in, we got another depth center / winger in. What are you going to do? How are you going to improve your game? What are the steps you're going to take? How are you going to try and stay in the lineup and battle for that spot? And I think Holmberg can do that because he has shown time and time again where he may look like he may be coming out of the lineup and he still stays in because of the fact that he's had that senior and pro experience, especially over in Sweden. I think that it is interesting to see how it'll play out. And this isn't like a knock on Holmberg. Sorry. I combined Holmberg and Källgren together there for a quick second.
Holmgren.
Holmgren.
Former Flyers GM.
There we go. I think it's just they just want to see him have that a little bit more fight into his game. And, we've seen him in the fourth line. He can't play that role. We'll see what happens because he has shown that he can be a presence and maintain that and be an NHLer, everyday player in this league. So interesting to see how it plays out. But then again, if you have to send some players down, you got to think first. experience, pedigree, and all that. And then Acciari and O'Reilly both have that to their resume.
Alex, long-term IR used as a cap position right now for Matt Murray, or is this something that we need to worry about going in? And what are your thoughts on Holmberg? Is this a guy we're going to see later going into the season?
Sorry, boys, I just burped right into the mic. I think Holmberg is a wild card. Like Dubas said, with the amount of forwards that they've added, I think that, they can send him to the AHL and he can develop and it won't hurt his development or anything like that. Or they could use him. Like he's proven enough this year that he can more than hold his own in the NHL. He's outproduced certain players on the team. Oh my, I'm sorry. And in terms of the LTIR thing for Murray, I think that if Samsonov keeps riding this hot streak and Joseph Woll's cool with being the backup and he gets a couple games in here or there and isn't completely out of place, I think that in that case, why not use him on LTIR? Because that way you can activate him for the playoffs when his salary won't matter against the cap. And if he's healthy by then, and if Samsonov starts to struggle or something, you've got a guy there who's gone to the cup final multiple times before. He's been in the playoffs. He knows what it takes. So I think that it would be in their best interest to utilize the LTIR unless Murray's at a point where in the next couple of weeks, he might be able to he might be able to make a bit of a sooner. I can't even put this sentence together unless like Murray is in a position where his injury isn't bad enough that he can come back in a couple of weeks, because it is his ankle, right? Like, unless it's a really bad ankle injury, I don't know how much recovery that's going to take. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a doctor, but it's not like a knee injury or a back injury like Foligno had. So I think it really depends on Murray's status. But if it's one of those things where it's like, he could come back before the season ends, but he might be better served just to focus on recovery and coming back at 100%, then utilize that cap space.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And right now, I think that's kind of where a lot of teams are at. And we've seen Alan Walsh tweet about long-term IR and how it's kind of a mockery of the hard cap and what have you. But at the same time, I mean, it's there for you to kind of utilize. And at this point in time, I mean, I wrote a piece 4 years ago for the Hockey Writers on the Patrick Kane loophole, and it's been used for Kucherov multiple times. And now, I mean, the Leafs have to utilize what they can to get them into a position to be competitors in the playoff time. And part of that is, hey, we got an injury, we got to bring in some other guys and to get their cap within our restraints here. We got to ship some guys over to LTIR, and if you can do that, I mean, by all means do it. I don't think there's going to be any team that says, you know what, Murray's ready to come back, but we're going to leave him on there. And I know there are league officials that kind of look into all that crap as well. But I'm all for it. As for Holmberg, I think it's like you said, Alex. It's a good move to get him down there and just continue to develop him. We saw it with Timothy Liljegren. You can't have them down there too long. You have them down there. They're playing every night. If he was to stay with the big club right now, I don't think he'd be getting in the lineup every night. And that's just a testament to the lineup that Sheldon Keefe puts out there every night. So that said, with the moves that are happening, I saw a question raised on Twitter shortly after the trade that, where does this put Zach Aston Reese? And in the offseason, we all discussed how excited we were that the Leafs got Zach Aston Reese, thought it was a good signing, good depth signing. Now you bring in Acciari. You've got Pierre Engvall, who, as much as I still am not a fan of his lack of physicality, I think offensively he's starting to look a lot better, and he's playing better in the offensive zone. And then you have a guy like Joey Anderson who's come in and in terms of a point per game average, he's outpacing Zach Aston Reese. Alex, is Zach Aston Reese going to be the odd man out here if we see the Leafs make another depth move?
I honestly don't think so. I think Zach Aston Reese brings what he brings. I think he's a guy that he was never supposed to be expected to bring a lot of offense. Doesn't play too many minutes a night. He's just sort of there to be strong on the forecheck and throw the body. And honestly, I think Keefe likes him in that role. If we're talking about leaving Pontus Holmberg in the minors and not waiving Zach Aston Reese, then I think that pretty much spells Czar's lineup position, to be completely honest. And, it would be nice to see a little more offense from him, but at the same time, for what he brings, on other sides of the puck, I really don't mind having him in the lineup. I think it'd be a lot worse if he was somebody who maybe had physicality on the same level as Engvall or Alex Kerfoot, and he was just sort of doing cardio out there, but he is making an impact whenever he's on the ice. He's just not scoring goals. So I think that, you do need some role players like that. And I feel like Czar's going to stay unless they make a really big move. Like he signed a contract, a 1-year contract. He had PTOs offered from other teams. And if you remember at the start of the season, he said, I'm a loyal guy, and the Leafs reached out first. So I can't imagine after all that, the Leafs are going to be like, hey, so we've made some trades and
we're not loyal.
Yeah. Sorry, buddy. You're loyal. We're not loyal. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a business, right?
And Kyle Dubas just waits till now to drop that line. But no, I can't really see Czar leaving the lineup unless he really starts playing bad. But I think he's been playing fine enough to stay.
Well, Peter, Jimmy Smith over on YouTube says Czar is here to stay. What are your thoughts on Zach Aston Reese? Is he a Leaf till the end of the season?
Like Alex and Jimmy, yeah, I don't. He is here to stay. I do agree with that. He does have, that factor where he does have that physicality and speed to get in on the forecheck. And yeah, the big issue is you would like to see a little bit more offense from him. There are times where like he fans on a pass, play is dead, and it's not an act or like a result of him not trying. It's just things aren't going his way. And you really can't help that. And there are times where he has gotten out of his, little slump and he's starting to show a little bit more consistency. He's back in there right now. So I think maybe if he gets one goal, that may change everything for him. I do think that if you do find a little bit more of an offensive producer that's just a tad bit more consistent than Zach Aston Reese, then maybe you look at acquiring him and he bumps down to maybe 13th, 14th forward. But at the moment right now, I don't think you could find anyone that just has that little bit more offensive upside, because he does everything that a fourth liner should do. Energy, get in, set up an attack, and be physical. And, again, there are times where he is at the center of a play and it results in a really great scoring chance. And what's going to be important in the playoffs is your depth players. And we've seen time and time again how the third and fourth lines have stepped up consistently, especially for the Colorado Avalanche and Tampa Bay Lightning in the past years. That fourth line and maybe Zach Aston Reese could be a result of being a part or involved in some key and critical goals down the stretch and in the playoffs. So I think he is here to stay for the rest of the season. Odd chance that if they do get somebody a little bit more offensively talented, then yeah, he may get bumped down. But I kind of like Alex, and even Jimmy here. I really liked his play this season. He's done a very good job in that fourth line PK kind of role that they need.
He's a playoff performer. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Is you brought this guy in because he's got that physicality. He plays the playoff brand of hockey, and that's something that the Leafs have been hurting in when it comes to their playoff hockey over the last couple of seasons. So I think Zach Aston Reese is here to stay. I think if you're going to move a guy out, you're going to see a Kerfoot. You're going to see even a Pierre Engvall. And like I said,
he's that extra cap space.
You need that extra cap space. And what Zach Aston Reese offers you in that area is not big enough to see him as the odd man out. And I do think that he's going to be a guy that we see stick around till the end of the season anyways. And from there, they can kind of figure out what they're going to do. Before we jump into the last couple of notes here, boys, obviously a quick word from our great sponsors over at the Indy Ale House. Hockey is back, and with it, so are the Maple Leafs. Getting ready for a night out or watching the game at home with the gang? What better way to do it than with a nice cold one from the folks at Indy Ale House in Toronto? With 2 locations in the city at Italy, Toronto at Bay and Bloor, the Biroteca location, they have 2 big screens, amazing authentic Italian food, and loads of beer. Also at OG Brew Pub in the Junction at Keele and Dundas, with 120 seats, famous bar food, and 12 taps. Indie Ale House is an award-winning brewery featuring their flagship Instigator IPA and dozens of rotating monthly special release beers. Perfect for takeout, dine-in, or bottle shop online orders when planning for game night. You can find Instigator IPA and Marco Polo Pilsner at finer LCBOs across the province as well. Hashtag Live Indie is the motto. Adventurous, fun-focused beers with a selection for everyone, from a healthy dose of in-your-face hoppy beers for the beer geeks to mainstream pilsners and easy drinking options. Indie Ale House is the go-to on game day.
This part of the ad. Sorry, I thought you were done.
That's right. I was just gonna say visit www.indiealehouse.com to place your order today. And
I was just gonna say, this isn't part of the ad, but I if you watched our last Bottom Line show, I am a strict lager and pilsner guy. I love the Instigator IPA.
Yes.
Normally can't stand IPAs. It's a great beer, and
it is. And they've got some new product coming out. You'll see us tweet it out all the time from the show's podcast, and definitely check them out. I whenever I can, I grab some of their Instigator IPA and sit down for the game. So that's always a testament to them as well. If they can produce great beer, I'll be drinking it. So
absolutely, I gotta refill my stock because I certainly need some right now.
Maybe we'll reach out to our friend Barry in Toronto and see what we can get him to throw us. But anyways, gentlemen, wanting to debut tonight, to the O'Reilly and Acciari are both on a flight in the air right now, heading to.
They've landed.
There you go.
You wouldn't notice because Twitter was kind of wonky,
yeah. You know what? I'm probably like 3 hours behind because Twitter. Thanks Elon Musk for creating a great product.
It is. Twitter's working a little. I think Twitter's working now, so
it is up in the running.
Should be fine, but. Yeah, they landed, I think, like an hour and a bit ago. They already did the big not introduction, but the Leafs account posted all the pictures.
Yeah.
Mike Stevens tweeted out a picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So there you go. They're with their team now, ready to play in.
It's crazy how they're not even going to get a practice in with the team before they just jump right in. And and I'm sorry, Forbes. No,
that's fine. That's fine. No, I'm glad you do that. Our back and forth is good here. That's why we do this, buddy.
I'm just, you know what? I love the fact that if you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys saw the tweet, but I love that O'Reilly and Acciari were both adamant to get into the lineup. I love how that word was used, how they immediately after the trade happened, they hopped on a plane to Toronto and they wanted to be in the lineup tonight, even though it's a back-to-back. Like when that trade first happened, I was thinking, okay, I'm sure they want to get him into a couple practices with their new team. And they got a back-to-back against some weaker teams. So it's like, maybe it's one of those things. They arrive in Toronto for Monday, practice with the team, get comfortable, and then debut in Buffalo on Tuesday. But no, back-to-back, day after, they're instantly dialed in and ready to go. I love it. And I love that Ryan O'Reilly also specifically picked Toronto. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it wasn't a trade that he wasn't interested in. Like
hometown boy, baby, hometown boy.
They said that they told him, you know what, we'll try and set up a trade with where you want to go, and he said, I want to go to Toronto. So they called up Dubas, and you want to have guys like that on your team, so it's big.
Absolutely. No, and all that in mind, guys, like for them to get into the lineup right now, I know it's not your classic rivalry with the Habs, obviously, with so many of their guys out of the lineup and them going hard for Bedard. But I have to say, like, where do you see them spotting O'Reilly to start his Maple Leaf career? Is he a second line winger and they shift things around? Because obviously he's not a guy that normally plays the wing, but or is he jumping into 3C and playing a little center in that depth role? Peter, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I just want to jump in that the fact that they said that they're adamant on playing shows
the passion.
It absolutely shows the passion, 120%. I mean, the fact that they are just coming into this very blind-eyed or very blind, just winging it kind of thing says that, you know what, they've seen what this team is. They played against them twice. They know what this team is capable of, the skill set that they have, and I think they're pretty familiar with them. And based on I before I get into the line of projection, I just want to say that you love to hear when players say that. That means that there is faith in the team and the organization, and they want to be a part of the solution and get this team past the hump or of where they want to get to past the first round. So I really like that. I love that determination, and I love their willingness to just jump right in. In regards to the lineup, in my recap of the trade, I mentioned that this gives them plenty of options, actually. You can have a center depth of Matthews, Tavares, O'Reilly, David Kampf, and then you slot, Noel Acciari either on the right wing side on the third or fourth line. Fair enough. I could totally live with that. But if you don't go for a top six forward and you want to try O'Reilly and swap him and Tavares every now and then on the wing, why not give that a shot? I mean, why not give Noel Acciari the center depth role push David Kampf for that third center line or fourth center line, because he can do just that, the same thing. So you have plenty of options if you're Sheldon Keefe. Do you want to put both on the wing, put both at center? It's totally up to you. I think both are going to thrive and excel no matter where they are in the lineup. And, I just want to say that, Noel Acciari is probably going to be the most underrated pickup that the Maple Leafs will have in some time, considering the fact that he does play that gritty physical game, 168 hits, led the St. Louis Blues. He's now basically leading the team right now, or he's going to be first in hits overall. But he has that grit, the sandpaper, the intensity that is made for playoff hockey. Same with Ryan O'Reilly. And if it comes to a point where, I'm pretty sure you guys remember, like in 2017 or 2018, Noel Acciari on the Boston Bruins, scoring goals against the Maple Leafs, putting that dagger right through our hearts. How sweet is that going to be if he does the exact opposite, but wearing a blue and white uniform against the Bruins, should we get to that point? I'm absolutely really looking forward to that, because that would everything will come around full circle. Acciari was sort of like a Leaf killer back then, but could be a Bruin killer right now.
Scores the series clinching goal against the Bruins. That'd be nice, eh? Little reverse classic
heart
Leafs.
palpitations going, little nerves.
Before I throw it to Alex, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but
little closer.
I
think the closer you put it to the camera, the better the focus is going to be. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan O'Reilly, anytime.
There you go.
Baby.
Okay.
There you go, boys.
All right.
So I got it going for tonight. Anytime goal scorer. Let's go Ryan O'Reilly. But Alex, where are we placing Ryan O'Reilly in this lineup? Should we get him on that second line with JT and Mitchie and get him his first goal out of the way and win me some money? Or what are we thinking here?
I think he can score his first goal playing third line center, man. I don't think it matters where you put him. I think the other thing too is that he's going to get some good power play time as well, and it'll let them spread the wealth out a little bit on the power play units. I think they're going to start him at third line center because, as tempting as it is to throw Acciari into that third line center role and have O'Reilly as the second line winger, man, you just can't, you cannot make an argument against center depth of Matthews, Tavares, O'Reilly up the middle with Kampf on the fourth line. Like, come on. So I think the Leafs really like O'Reilly's face-off abilities and his general defensive abilities as a center. And Acciari's not a slouch either. I think you could either put him on the third line or the fourth line, and he'd mesh well in both. So the beauty of the situation to me is that one of those things doesn't have to be the thing for the rest of the year, right? Like you can adjust it. You can, if you need to get some offense going, you can throw O'Reilly on the second line. If you want to play conservative and really shut down the opposing team, you can use him at third line center. There's so many options here. And I want to give a shout out to my little brother. You can follow him on Twitter at Varsho MVP. You can tell he's a Blue Jays fan. He tweeted, and this is most accurate tweet I've ever seen. He says, "Number one thing I know about Noel Acciari is that I fucking hated him when he was on Boston, so I'm hyped we got him." And does that not spell it out perfectly right there? Noel Acciari was one of those players. Him and frickin' Sean Corelli were two guys on those 2018 and 2019 Bruins teams that I was just like, fuck, hear these guys' names all the time. They're shutting down the Leafs. They're just such a pain in the ass to play against. So,
but very, very rare too that the Leafs go and get somebody like that. That was a thorn in their side, right? Normally somebody that was on our team, goes off to a team within the division and ends up being a Leaf killer later in their career. But quick question. Actually, before we get to the question here, I will say too, I think it's great to have him at 3C. I think it'll be good for the entire lineup. I think tonight they start him at the wing just to give him get him going, get his feet under him with the Leafs and give him the opportunity, and then maybe shift him late in the game. But I do think that you're going to see Sheldon Keefe, play the blender with Ryan O'Reilly on multiple occasions throughout the remainder of the season, because he's going to have the opportunity to do so. And with the strength of that lineup, I mean, having a guy like Ryan O'Reilly play next to JT and Mitchie on that second line is going to be incredible. But as 3C, he'll also create a little bit more of that depth offense throughout the lineup as well, which is going to be important heading into the playoffs. Quick question from Logan Stone on YouTube. Do you like the trade if he returns to the Blues when his contract is up? Alex, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, I do. And honestly, right now I'm looking at it as if he's going to leave after the season ends, because like Dubas said, there's no talks of an extension right now. So as of right now, you have to assume that he's being used as a rental. And if the Leafs can manage to bring him back, I think that's a great, that'd be a great ending to the story, but that's not something that I think the Leafs are even thinking about right now. And it's just like we said earlier on in the episode, trading a first and prospects and all that for a rental isn't ideal, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And, the Leafs needed to make a big move like that, because if they didn't, then Tampa would have, or Boston would have. And I think it's just one of those things where you make the big swing, you take the home run swing right now, and then you deal with the issues later. So I think it would be perfect if O'Reilly did re-sign with the Leafs after this season, because Dubas has a tendency to re-sign players that he trades for. But at the same time, if he walks, I think as long as they make some noise in the playoffs, I'm okay with it. If it's God help me, if it's a first round loss and O'Reilly walks, then it's really going to hurt. And I don't even want to speak about that possibility right now.
Don't even go that far, man.
But really, like, this team is better built for playoff success than they've ever been before. And people will laugh and say, oh, they say that every year. But the reality is objectively, whether you're a Leafs fan or a Habs fan or a Sens fan, or whether you're just a general hockey fan, you can't look at that Leafs lineup and not say it's objectively the best team they've had in the Matthews era. That's just the way it is.
Peter, are you okay with this trade if he heads back to St. Louis following the end of this season?
Yeah, Alex summed it up perfectly. And in the event where he does re-sign in St. Louis, no matter what happens, this is a move that they needed to do regardless. You needed to go all in. You needed to prove show that the team isn't afraid to make moves and take gambles like this, no matter what. I do think that obviously there is a possibility that he signs in St. Louis. I do think that there is that slim glimmer of hope that because he willingly wanted to come to the Maple Leafs, I think that there may be some unfinished business on his part and maybe Noel Acciari's part, and they both re-sign with the Maple Leafs. Acciari to maybe to what he's currently making, and obviously O'Reilly taking significantly less than what he made with the $7.5 million. If you could get him under or like in between 4 to 5, I think that'll be more realistic, especially for like 2 to 3 years maybe. But yeah, I think that this is definitely, I'm not going to have any problems with this move no matter what the result is, if he goes back, if he signs here, no matter what. Big gamble, big price to pay, but it's definitely something that they needed to do, and it could be worth it.
I think the way you got to differentiate it is, you can have your opinions on the trade and how it ends up working out before and after the fact, but regardless, I think you got to respect Dubas just for taking that swing.
Yeah,
like that's even if
at the beginning with Samsonov and Murray.
Even if O'Reilly breaks his foot tonight, doesn't play another game for the rest of the year, and they go out in round one. Sorry.
Why?
I'm sorry.
You just took me back to when we brought Doug Gilmour back. He went out for 3 seconds and like crushed
injured the first shift. Yeah, I remember that.
That's all I can think about.
I'm pretty sure I was still walking around in fucking pull-ups when that happened. So I feel like if I remembered that, then I would have heard a lot more. But even if this trade flops in the absolute worst way possible, I'd still be like, you know what, Dubas went for it. And like I said in a tweet earlier this year, I'll be able to respect Dubas a lot more. If things go badly this year, I'll be able to respect him a lot more if he tried as opposed to if he didn't try. And he's trying.
Yeah.
I personally think Ryan O'Reilly came back because he just wanted to crush the Buffalo Sabres for the next 5 years for wasting his time for part of his career. But no, in all honesty, I think that there is a legitimate shot that the Leafs, if they find the way to work it out cap wise, that they could re-sign Ryan O'Reilly. That said, I don't want to hear anybody from Leafs Nation complain if, the Leafs do flop in the first round, get knocked out, and Ryan O'Reilly walks. I don't want to hear a word of it because
especially if you like the trade.
Well, but if you look back on most of Leafs Twitter over the last 3 months, it's all about going all in and this is the year and we got to do it now while Matthews is still here because he's only got 1 year left on his contract. It's the same bullshit we've seen for years. And now you've had a guy like Kyle Dubas go out and make that big trade, get that big name. You gave up a first round pick for it. There's no complaining after this. It's done. It happened. And everyone wanted him to make a big deal. Everyone wanted him to make a big deal.
And you know what? This is one of the rare trades where both ends of the spectrum of Leafs fandom likes this trade. You got the bagheads. They like the trade because they went out and got a physical player and a guy who's won a cup. And then you've got, I don't want to use the word Dubasites because, I feel like that's a dog whistle for anybody that doesn't wake up every day hating Kyle Dubas. But like the people on the other end of the spectrum that think Dubas can do no wrong, obviously love the trade too. It's just one of those rare moves where both sides, everybody kind of comes together. Is like, yeah, this is a great deal. And you've got the few that are trying to compare it to the Foligno deal and few that are trying to, and you know what, while we're on that topic, I'm just going to try and debunk that right away. I said this in a tweet yesterday as well. If you are comparing the O'Reilly deal to the Foligno deal, don't stop it. There are no similarities. And the only similarity I can even think of is that Foligno got injured and had a bit of an injury worry when the Leafs traded for him. Ryan O'Reilly blocked a shot with his foot and broke his foot. That's his injury this year. It's not a chronic back issue like Nick Foligno had. He broke his foot blocking a shot. And before that, his injury history, I want to say it was like 5 games 5 years ago with an oblique injury. He had an appendectomy, I think the year before that. And then he was fine for a couple of years. And then I think COVID was his next injury. So this guy's not a Band-Aid. Like he hasn't had a great year this year, but
the Blues didn't either. The Blues didn't either.
The Blues didn't either. Fucking Binnington can't make a save. Yeah. Like the Blues team this year.
He's too worried about fighting other players that he hasn't focused on actually being a goaltender at the NHL level.
He's too focused on being a fake tough guy. That's the big thing. Yeah. But and the other thing too, one more thing, trying to slash this comparison of Foligno and O'Reilly. Nick Foligno hit 73 points in like 2014 and hit 51 points. That was his next best high. After that, he's been a very consistent like 30 to 40 point player. And Ryan O'Reilly is, up until this year, has been close to a point per game player every year. This year, is literally his only bad season to date. So there's just no comparisons to be had here between Foligno and O'Reilly. So if you've got that worry in your head, I understand it because of how bad that Foligno deal panned out, but there's no comparisons to be had.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Before we get to our last question here, your guys' thoughts on, is it too early to predict a winner? And I'm gonna reference Mike McKenna here, who hopefully we'll get on the show at some point, but he said he loves the return for the St. Louis Blues. He's not overly excited for what Toronto got out of this deal. He has to wait and see what the outcome is. Alex, your thoughts on this? Do we have a winner? Do we need to wait? What are your thoughts?
We need to wait, first of all, but I don't really understand the logic in saying that the Blues immediately get an A for getting a bunch of mystery boxes and draft picks and prospects, but the Leafs have to wait for getting 2 established players. Like, yeah, I obviously if they go out in the first round and O'Reilly and Achari don't contribute all that much, then yeah, it'll be a bad deal for the Leafs. But right now, I don't think you can really say there's a winner for either side. I think it's a good deal for both sides. Shout out to the Variety Sports Network, St. Louis based. Obviously, it works out kind of perfectly that we're doing this with them right now because it's a big trade for both teams. Yeah. I think the Blues got a great return, to be completely honest. For a guy that there's the potential he could re-sign in St. Louis over the summer. And, the fact that they were already so far removed out of the playoff race, like getting 4 draft picks or whatever it was and 2 or a prospect and a roster player, I think that's a great return for a rental. So I think this is a good deal for both sides.
Peter, your thoughts? Is Mike McKenna on to something, or do we need to wait and see what we get with O'Reilly and Archari?
I mean, based on history, from what we all know, yeah, we should wait and see for the Maple Leafs. But then again, I think kind of like the whole Vladimir Tarasenko trade, I think that they were more worried about or more concerned about the picks than they are about the actual players that they got in return, because Sammy Blais and then, a C-level prospect wasn't that great of a return if they're looking for some help right now. Totally understand that they wanted the pick. Same thing right here. Mikhail Abramov, decent prospect, B to C level, but at the same time, really hasn't quite taken that next step. Was over, kind of got bumped down to the team's prospect depth. Further down with names like Holmberg, Steves, McMahon, them having standout seasons and standout performances. And even Adam Gaudette too. I know I was high on him before. Hopefully he could have gotten a chance to maybe get some NHL time, but at the same time, he's just still been in the AHL. So I think right now the picks are more important than the actual roster players or the players are getting back. But yeah, for them to for the Blues to get the picks that they did, big win. For the Maple Leafs, again, to be determined.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say the Leafs won the trade, and here's why. They pleased the fans. They pleased the people that have been on this team for so long to make that big deal. They got exactly what they wanted, and on top of that, they got a Stanley Cup champion, a Conn Smythe winner, a guy who yearly should be up for the Selke, and they got a depth player in Achari that's going to go out there and give them big minutes and big tough minutes in the playoffs when it comes around to that. So I'm going to say the Leafs got what they wanted. They went out and they got exactly what they wanted. Go take a look at the Leafs Twitter right now, if Twitter's working for you, and you'll see the smile on O'Reilly's face. That's a guy that's happy to be here. That's a guy that wants to play for this team. That's a guy that wants to don the blue and white. And then while we're at it, go check out Jay Rosehill on Twitter as well, because he just tweeted a video of O'Reilly's curve on his new stick, and man, it's something else. It's something I've never seen before. So a little fun for you as we close out this episode. But last thing before we go, guys, 2 names off the Leafs roster right now that will not be here past deadline. Peter, go.
Kerfoot and Hall.
Alex, are you on the same boat?
I want to say yes, but I also don't. I think we've been talking about these guys being traded for like 3 years now. So
that's true,
much like the O'Reilly trade, I need to see it to believe it. So
all right. I'm gonna go Robertson and Engvall. Robertson and Engvall not on the Leafs roster after the deadline. But anyways, gentlemen, last little closeout note from our friend Cody, who's tuned in this entire episode. Hell yeah, boys. Love an ice cold beer. Well, Cody, check out the Indie Ale House. They've got some incredible beers, and they support this fantastic show. And he wanted to know when we're next in Toronto. We won't be there for some time. We're doing the lives right now remotely. Hopefully we'll be back at the bottom line at some point. And when we are, hopefully you'll drop in and grab a beer with us.
We'll be there doing a live pod for the Cup Parade. We'll
Cup Parade, that's right. Yeah, and All-Star Weekend next year. All-Star Weekend will be there for it. But
yeah.
Anyways, boys, anything else before we close it out?
Go Leafs, go, baby. Have the passion.
Yeah.
It unites us all.
Passion is alive and well in the city right now. So I'm curious to know how many Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari jerseys are going to be sold. Probably more O'Reilly than Acciari, but you know what? Hey, I want to see that 90 with O'Reilly on the back. That's going to look very, very fun.
Peter's locking in his Acciari order right now. He'll have that for the next pod. But aside from that, boys, go O'Reilly. Go get me some bank here, buddy. Get your first with the Leafs, and I'll be a happy camper. Otherwise, as always, folks, thank you for joining us on episode 114 of the podcast. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Andrew G. Forbes, A. Hobson Media for Alex, and P. Barricchini. Great follows as always. Or you can follow the show at Sticks in the Six Pod. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, We're getting some great comments on TikTok too. You guys should check that out. Some of these nut jobs on TikTok, it's fantastic. I'm too old for TikTok, but I'm using it.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I don't open TikTok ever. So
The only reason I do is to see the responses to some of the videos.
I didn't even realize, I didn't even realize we were getting engagement on there. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Some good engagement. And be sure to subscribe on YouTube as well as we continue to push this show to take that next step. Shout out to the Variety Sports Network for having us on, based in St. Louis, as Alex mentioned, and as always to the folks at Indie Ale House for continuing to partner and support this fantastic show. I always love joining you boys weekly to talk our Leafs. Go Leafs, go! And until next time, episode 115.